Welcome to the Powercast with Charlie Johnson. I'm one of the world's leading fitness and transformation coaches. I'm going to be providing you with the tools to build your ultimate body and mind. It's an absolute pleasure today to have the infamous Ben Coomber on the podcast. So, legendary nutritionist, coach, and podcaster, a specialist. So, thank you very much for being on the show.
Cheers, dude. Thanks for having me. I've not been described as infamous before.
Notorious?
Notorious. Do we put a BIG after that?
We already start with the banter. We've only just begun.
Sounds good anyway.
It does indeed. So if anyone who doesn't know who you are, Ben, what is it you do and where are you from? And just give us a little bit of a background.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully my sound's just improved. I've actually only just plugged in my microphone. Podcasting 101. You wouldn't have thought I'm a podcaster. Hey. So yeah, I'm primarily a nutritionist. I, like many people, straddle sort of fitness, mindset, speaking. I have a podcast, but nutrition for me has always been a focal point because I saw the power of it in my own life. I was obese as a young guy, left school, wanted to kind of chase a career, and I felt that I couldn't be successful looking and feeling the way that I did. So that caused me to embark on a journey of, trying to improve myself, trying to lose weight, trying to, get some confidence back that I felt I had lost. And, maybe I'd never really had it as a teenager. It's always a troublesome year or period of time in your life. And I struggled a lot with food. It just didn't really make sense. I was following all the advice. And then it was when a couple of things just fell into place that I lost 5.5 stone in about 6 months. And it was that kind of process where I was like, and kind of that's always just had me really interested in food. Did you find out of interest that there was one trigger point that suddenly made you think you need to make a change? Because I know I personally, this is fascinating. This is very similar to my own story. I remember as mid-teens overhearing my parents talk about me being overweight and needing to sort it out. And that from that moment almost probably kick-started maybe not a warped mindset, but probably put a seed in my mind that it was something I needed to try and address. And it took me quite a while to get to the point where I could start to get it under control, if that makes sense. Yeah, interesting that, because there's an awful lot of conversation at the moment in the fitness industry about kind of body confidence, the shame that seems to be in the industry around people being overweight. You've got this obesity campaign by, Cancer Research UK. There's an awful lot of people saying that shame doesn't work. But actually, I think any approach works for a lot of different people. You overheard a conversation, you felt quite bad. You were like, well, actually, I'm going to act on this. And the reality is some people act on what needs to change and some people don't act on what needs to change. And don't get me wrong, there's a plethora of reasons there. But I can't remember your original question, so I've just gone off on a tangent.
No, the guys, to be fair, we've just gone off rock and roll. But it's quite an interesting tunnel to go down, though, to be fair. And I think that, in my opinion, not necessarily a shame society, but it's a bit like that whole third place trophy sort of phenomenon is starting to go on a bit, where people just get a gold medal for turning up. You have to give people a reason to be successful and to try and look a certain way and have some accountability and responsibility for their own lives, if that makes sense, in my own opinion. It's probably a bit harsh, but the world isn't sunshine and rainbows in that respect. And you sometimes have to be cruel to be kind if it's in people's own interests. Oh, you do. And it's a hard thing for a lot of people to do because culturally, like you've said, it's kind of been beaten out of us a bit. But the thing is, let's be honest, facts are facts. If someone is staring down the barrel of being 6 stone overweight and they've got health problems, you're 6 stone overweight and you've got health problems. There's no point us beating around the bush. The reality is the reality. And someone chooses to go down that path, or they choose to change that path and change the course of their health, their weight, their fitness, etc. So I do genuinely, as a coach, believe and subscribe to having quite a direct approach. I do feel it is a skill to be direct, but also tactful. When I'm direct with someone, it's a fine balancing act.
Yeah, but I'm also like kind in that approach. I'm not just kind of being nasty. And, you know, there's plenty of people that are direct and nasty. But people need to hear like where they're at. I want to hear where I'm at. Like if I'm doing something wrong, I want someone to be able to tell me like, mate, like you're doing it wrong. Like, do it this way, or have you thought about that? Or actually, mate, I'm calling bullshit on your own truth here. Like that, what you're saying is not being reflected in your actions. And I want to see that more in society in general. And you know, it's like social media snowflake syndrome. Like everyone gets hurt by every comment these days. It's like, again, if the facts stack up, the facts stack up.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the same thing comes across with like you saying, like, I think people almost need to open themselves up for criticism to try and improve, like in all aspects of life. And even like the same thing with my own training or whatever, like I always ask people's feedback on everything I do, whether I necessarily listen sometimes or not, is open for how I feel at the time. But I'm always looking for feedback to try and improve. And I think that's where sometimes people are too afraid to have people have up their own opinions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, success is a funny thing, and I don't feel that people spend enough time looking to model behavior and character traits and the journey that essentially someone needs to go on. So if we were going to talk about someone's body and they looked at you and they're like, right, what does this dude eat? How does he train? Okay, cool. Well, I don't want to quite get to where he is, so I don't need to quite take the approach that he does. But I kind of need to model a lot of my diet and my training and my behavior on what this Charlie dude is doing, because otherwise I'm not going to get close to that point in time. So it's important to look at people's behavior. Like I am a business owner, so I look at other businesses and say, right, I'm going to model the kind of things that guy's doing and the things that guy's learned. And that's why I really like autobiographies. You know, when you read it, you see the pain that people have been through. You've seen the struggles. You've seen criticism that people have had to take on board. You've seen the failure that people have gone through. And I think that reinforces and gives you confidence that those are the steps that you have to go through, because without criticism, without failure, without going through these processes, without being true to yourself, you won't ever really improve. You won't challenge yourself. You won't become your best self. And ultimately, why is someone listening to this podcast? They're probably here for self-development. They want to better themselves. Well, bettering yourself starts with, you know, really looking at the truth and asking hard questions of yourself.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think sometimes the hardest person to be brutally honest with is yourself. And that's a difficult thing to sometimes let settle in, I think.
Well, it's easy to tell yourself a nice little story. I won't do that because it's cold, or I won't do that because it hurts, or I won't do that because I ain't got enough money, or whatever.
Or I need some extra carbs because I did an extra set of legs today, or whatever it might be. Like you can make anything else up you like and tell yourself whatever you want.
Exactly. And that's why I always tell people, like, have someone that you can have an honest conversation with that will call you out on your bullshit. Like, if not, write a journal. If not, pause to take thought. Because I would be honest, in the modern world, again, I don't think we spend enough time just being reflective, like looking at what we're doing, looking at the plan. If you get to the end of the week and you're pissed off with your results, were you now going to spend half an hour looking at why that is? Or are you just going to crying into the ice cream tub as you watch another film on Netflix? It's like, no, if you're unhappy with your outcome at the end of the week, sit down, take stock. How did training go? How did your diet go this week? Like, what were the points of friction? Like, where did you kind of mess up? Cool. Well, let's identify with that. Don't just be pissed off about it. Let's just correct it, change the course of action. And I don't think we do enough of that these days. It's like weight loss. Oh, I want to lose weight. All right, awesome. How much time have you spent on that problem in the last week? Oh, not much. Done a couple of Google searches, watched a video. Like, well, don't expect to solve that problem in a meaningful way if you haven't given it a meaningful amount of time.
Yeah, if you haven't prioritised the task, then the task's not going to get done. It really is as simple as that.
Yep.
That's why I'm a big fan of, like, I'm a bit of a list geek. I love writing a list every day of these are like the hot list of things that have to get done today, whether it's training, business, whatever it is. And then you've got a list of other stuff that if you've got time, you can try and fit in or squeeze in. And those the hot list just has to get done. And that, for me, it's like an easy way for me to almost manage my life, if that makes sense, and almost like a stress-free way to do it, because you take the things that need to be done out of your brain and just put them onto paper, and then you can visualize what needs to be done.
Mate, man after my own heart. I'm exactly the same. I have a list for everything: training, diet, business, everything.
On another note, another way I find quite an easy way to cope and try and cope not necessarily the right word, but finds feedback is I'm a big fan of, like, obviously we're both coaches ourselves, but I'm also coached in pretty much every aspect of my life and what I do, because I like and respect certain people's opinions in a specific field. So I've got people who help me from a business point of view, with my own training, with my own diet, like health, just so I've got other people's opinions to bounce ideas off, so that I can't tell myself my own lie of, oh yeah, you're doing really great today, when someone will pull me up and be like, no, this is shit, you need to sort your life out. I don't know if you've got a similar sort of thought process of how you sort of work then.
Yeah, I think having mentors and coaches are really important. It's funny, in the fitness industry, quite often when I teach, I ask trainers, I'm like, how many of you in here have got a personal trainer? And not many people put their hands up. And I'm like, well, how are you going to experience what personal training is, especially from someone that is 3, 4, 5 years ahead of you? Ultimately, we're all moving somewhere, like whether it's mind, nutrition, business, mindset. Who's coaching you with that? Like, where are you getting your advice from? Books are great, podcasts are great. But they only get you so far. When you are speaking to someone that's got 5, 6, 10, 12, 20 years on you, they're imparting all that wisdom onto you. And that's the hard thing about kind of mentorship and coaching. It might cost you 30, 50, 80, 100, 150 pounds an hour. But how much value could you get for that? And sometimes I don't think people really appreciate it. And you've got to take a few punts. You've got to experience it. Like I charge a certain amount per hour, and some people will go, ooh, that's a little expensive. And I'm like, get on Skype with me, and I bet you get the answers that you need within about 20 minutes.
This is a saying I love, is just don't think what it will cost, think what will it cause. Like, I think people are too afraid to invest in themselves. Like, for me, I will spend money willy-nilly on anything to try and improve myself. And I don't know if you agree, I don't think I've ever spent money on something to help me improve physically or mentally, and it hasn't paid off like dividends in the long run.
100%. But you got to dip your toe in the water. You've got to have a little try. You've also got to have a few failed experiences as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I've had bad coaching sessions, but at least a bad coaching session helps you realize a good coaching session and a good mentor. So, sometimes a little bit of failure there is a good thing as well.
So the law of relativity with things like that.
100%.
You can't have the good days without the bad.
No, you can't. And just, you got to chalk it up and move on. But I love being able to sit on a Skype with someone, and that's a beautiful thing about podcasting. Like, you get an opportunity to pick someone's brain and have a little insight and get their experience, and it is so valuable. I don't really read that many books anymore. I generally have a problem, I find the person I think that can fix it. I'm like, cool, I want an hour of your time. Let's jump on a phone call. And the reality is I have the answer to my question within an hour. And yes, it's cost me more, but it saved me time. And time is the most valuable resource we all have. So I can take 2 months to read a book, or I can get on a call and find it out within 20 minutes and then just take action.
Yeah, and I think time is everything. And the thing I think a lot of people don't realize is what else you could have done with those 2 months of time. You're so much further down the line already, because you've already got that information straight away directly from the source.
Yep, 100%.
What is there any books or anything in particular, or podcasts that you're a big fan of other than your own, that you find are good for anyone listening to absorb any information from? Or where do you go when you're looking for like mindset inspiration or anything like that in particular? Is anyone you're big into?
Yeah, you started off with a really broad question. You started to narrow it down towards the end, because it's really tough. Like, people ask me that online. They're like, what books do you like? And I'm like, what category are we talking about? Like,
what's the context of it? Yeah.
One of my favorite, like 2 of my favorite ever, just like pure out and out self-development books. First one is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Yeah. If you can get into the mindset that they talk about in that book, then I think you'll be bulletproof in life.
I love listening to that man speak as well. When you see him speak, he's so passionate.
Yes, and just like, he rises you up just through his energy.
Oh, absolutely phenomenal.
Love it. Second one is, what is it? The 7 Habits of Highly Influential People. And it's basically just a life book. It's not really a business book. Yes, it will make you great at business, but it talks about being the best dad that you can be if you've got kids, being the best human that you can be, being the best communicator in your relationship. It's just a great book about life. So those two that I'm a massive, massive fan of.
Right. I think that's, I think modeling is something I'm quite a big fan of, trying to find people who you aspire, who've achieved what you want to achieve, and instead of just trying to model yourself on them, and then almost like trying to behave and do the actions of the person that you want to be, if that makes sense. I think it's quite a good way to conduct your life.
Yeah, and you might only model for a month, but you might model for 5 years. It depends what you're trying to achieve. If someone was trying to achieve a 6-pack, they might model their behavior on you for 12 weeks, but then it served its purpose and you might go elsewhere. From a business point of view, it might be a long-term modeling goal because business is quite long-term. So, don't be afraid to kind of sit down, reflect, is this still serving my purpose? No, okay, move on. And that's okay. I think sometimes people are a bit too slow to realize when something isn't serving them anymore. And you just say, right, end of, move on.
No, I 100% agree with that. That's what comes into topics as well, talking about like habits, and like people pick up a lot of bad habits and routines. And obviously with both of what we do, you see that a lot with people's fitness lifestyles and the way they train, the way they eat. Like, do you have anything you suggest to anyone to try and get themselves out of habits, or maybe make themselves more aware of anything they are doing?
So we talked earlier about kind of making to-do lists and prioritizing what you want to achieve. I think when we look at all the hours we've got available in a day, so let's say we've got 16 hours available, 8 of them are in bed. Like, what is happening with your work? What is happening with your family commitments, friends, or the rest of it? Cool. You've now, got 5, 7, 8 hours free. How are you going to spend that time? And the thing that people are struggling with is there's so much noise in the modern world with phones, social media. It's kind of making everything fuzzy. Nothing's clear anymore. So because we're so attached to technology, it is blurring our timeline. So before, back in the day, someone would get up at like 6:30 in the morning. They'd go downstairs, make a coffee, make their breakfast, probably watch the news for 15 minutes, do something. Then they'd be off to work. They'd get to work to 7:30. They'll do their work. 5 o'clock, they'd knock off. They'd drive to the gym. And like, there's no blurring of the lines in any of this time. And now with the mobile phone and with social media, all of these things are getting slightly longer because we're checking our phone here, checking our phone there. You might, let's say we've got a busy student. The student that goes to sit down to do their homework, they've got 2 hours spare. They're like, I'll just check Facebook. And then all of a sudden, 20 minutes has gone past. Then their brain's in this kind of jumping procrastination mode. And now they've only got 90 minutes to do their thing rather than 2 hours. So one of the things that I do for kind of productivity is it's like I plan my day out and I stick to every one of those time blocks that I put myself into, including the time when I check social media. So I'll generally put like half an hour aside a day to check my social media, and I'll check it then, and that's it. Like, I might miss things, so fucking what? Like, the other things in my life are more important. So the biggest hack for me is now controlling your time by controlling your use of your mobile phone, which I think is the biggest distraction we have right now.
I'd agree with that. I think the issue now with technology is, if you think about the way it works, particularly the way notifications come up, messages come through, email, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, it makes you reactive. So you're essentially like running on other people's time, where I want to be proactive. I want to control and conquer and command my day. So that's why I have all my notifications turned off. I do, like as you said, I do what I want on my own schedule. So like, people will WhatsApp me and I'll reply to them when I like see it fit, being polite. Like, same with emails or Instagram messages. Like, I think that's a very easy way to try and take some control back and not have such a reactive mindset as turn a lot of your notifications off on your phone. And then also, I'd probably try not to look at your social media probably for the first 2 hours of the day, or your emails, because I think a lot of people have a bad, myself including this, I struggle with not necessarily the best example of doing it. It's something I'm trying to get out of the habit of doing, is looking at my emails and messages first thing in the morning. I also had a bad habit a while ago of like, I'd wake up in the night to look at what the time was. I'd see an email and then I'd be into it, and then I can't sleep again because my brain's all lit up with thoughts about whatever. So I think that's quite an easy way for you to try and get control back of your life and try and add some more structure and efficiency in. It's by just, as you said, just having more of a diarised system and thinking that you control your phone rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I do all of those things. I don't have notifications. I try and do as much as possible on like a desktop computer with my work.
Yeah.
Again, it's then faster. We're in the habit of using our phone, but actually I'm a really fast typer. So there's no point me using my phone when I can type at like 4 times the speed. It's just inefficient, but we're getting in the habit of, doing everything on our phone because it's just there. Ultimately, the thing that stops with you kind of checking in all the time is you don't do what they call, well, it's a famous book, but eat the frog. Like if you're going to get up in the morning, like what's the most important thing that day? Is your workout the most important thing? Should you prioritize it? Should it be the first thing that you do that day to make sure it's kind of like boxed off and in the bag? And that's where social media is getting in the way, because we're not just able to prioritize the really big important things. And the reality is the things that are probably important need a bit more time, need a bit more headspace, need a bit more creativity and clarity. They're not 10, 15-minute jobs. So when people complain that, they lose focus, inspiration, motivation, they procrastinate, it's because you're just letting little shitty things get in the way and you're not just getting stuck into the thing that needs to be done.
Very, very interesting. You've got a very similar mindset to me, Ben, so I can see a lot of similarities there. How have you always had this sort of mindset, or is this something that's developed through the years of experience and maybe working with different people? Or
No, I've developed it. It's like you. I'm a avid reader. I'm an avid learner. I grew up when social media was getting big, so I started my first online business in 2009. That's when Facebook was then becoming like quite popular and everyone was talking about it that was young and stuff. So it kind of got integrated into my lifestyle and I probably let it control things quite a bit. But then back then we didn't really have smartphones. They were like just starting to come into the market. I couldn't afford one because I was a student. So I had to learn all these different things, but I've probably read like 20 different productivity books, 40 different business books, 50 different mindset books. So, you throw enough shit at the wall and you start to develop tools and techniques that enable you to systemize and manage your life more effectively.
I don't know if you do the same thing. What I love to do when I'm working is I like to have stuff on in the background because I feel I subtly absorb like little hints and tips and like mindsets. I like listening to, I don't know, people like Gary Vee or whoever it might be with like a very positive mindset and like the go-getter attitude, because I feel like even just listening and being around that sort of thing rubs off on you. Like even if it's just little 5% every day, that like accumulates over time.
Yeah, I don't like having like words in the background when I'm trying to do tasks where I'm trying to concentrate on my own words. No.
Maybe I'm just a bit weird. I probably tried to do too many things at once. It's probably my.
I hate that. I'd rather just focus. I put music on, but that's it.
Fair enough. In terms of your own development, obviously through your own career, through the nutrition, what was the next standpoint? Obviously, you got your diet and everything kicked into gear. Did that give you the confidence then to go and like run your own online business?
So you've got to rewind a bit further. So I lost all the weight back in like 2004, 2005.
Okay. Gap between the two.
Pardon?
So there's a bit of a gap between the two.
Yeah, there was. So I lost all the weight. I did a personal training course purely because I wanted to become more knowledgeable. I had no intention of being a personal trainer. So did a couple of courses. The courses that I did were absolutely amazing. They really inspired me. I was kind of falling out of love with what I was doing because I'd done acting for the first like 10 years of my life. All my teen years, I was an actor and I thought that was my kind of destiny. So that was when I trained to become a personal trainer. From 20 to 21, I worked as a personal trainer for a year. And then I went to uni. And it was at uni that I just kind of tried everything. I was a PT. I did sports coaching. I started a business. Like I just did everything. And then over time, through trying everything, I was like, this is really what I want to do. And I just started to build an online business. And it probably took me a good 3 or 4 years to like really get to where I wanted to be. And at that same time, I was, doing all little side jobs like personal training and stuff. And then, I kind of went full time into the online space in about 2011. But, to answer your original question, weight loss fueled my confidence, because anyone that feels a lot better about themselves and their appearance is a more confident person. And then if you keep practicing things that challenge your confidence, so they're just small steps that put you a little bit outside your comfort zone, you become a very confident person. And I use this example because I have a very vast background in acting training. And people are like, oh, Ben, that's why you're good on camera. That's why you don't mind doing all of this stuff. I'm like, no, that's absolutely untrue, because what being in drama school teaches you is like almost all the techniques. It doesn't really teach you confidence. When I was younger, I had a lot of fake confidence. So when you're an actor, you play the character of someone else. So you're never yourself. So I was a really confident teenager, but I always felt I was like playing up to the part. I was always being silly. I was always the fat, jolly kid at school that kind of just tried to deflect all the bullying that he got. And then I lost all my weight. And I remember really clearly I had to do a university presentation once. And it was in my first year. And I got up and I just had to be me. It was me on the spotlight. I was being grilled about what I'd learned and what I knew and what I wanted to change in this kind of project that we were doing in our sports degree. And I was shaking like a leaf, because I was up there being judged as me as a person and hadn't fully developed my confidence as me as a person. So I had to go through that journey of learning how to be confident as me and not playing a character. And don't get me wrong, my skills and my acting training help bridge that gap, but it's a totally different type of confidence.
Yeah, I suppose the acting is almost just a charade. You're just pretending to be someone you're not, I guess.
It was. I spent my whole childhood doing it.
I can imagine how, I can almost, I guess, gives you almost like an alter ego, I guess you probably try and flip into. And I don't know if do you feel like you get that still when you go on camera or anything like that? You almost become a different person, or do you find you just Ben and you're just normal? It's just you now.
No, I just think it's me. There's a running joke in our business that I pride myself on being a one-take wonder. Like, we'll turn on the camera.
Knowing how difficult that is, I'm about 3-take wonder now, so it's improved from about 8.
Yeah, no, camera on, speak, done. And that's because I don't have to change anything. I know what I know. I know what I want to say. It's just a case of talking about it. The only reason I might want to take another take is because we're like, oh, you should probably say that bit with a lot more emphasis, or like do an action or something like that. But I usually come out with what I want to say because I'm just being me and I know my shit.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. It's very, very interesting points there, to be fair. Your development where you came from is awesome. Do you find when you initially started, I can imagine it was probably a lot worse then, that a lot of people were maybe a little bit like, gave you a bit of ridicule, like, oh, why are you doing this, Ben? Why are you posting all this sort of stuff? Because I know, like, in my own sort of journey, like personally and for my own business, when I first started, everyone sort of ridiculed me as like, why is Charlie doing all this? Why is he posting all these photos, videos, putting all this training information out? Did you get much of that when you first started?
A little bit, but people quickly learned that I was trying to do this for a reason. And I think if you stand your ground early doors, people back off. And like, you know, if I'm posting something on Facebook and I'm like, this is my business, I'm trying to help people, I'm trying to put out a message, people will quickly learn like, oh God, I'm the one that's looking a dick here.
Yeah.
The thing that people don't realize, if you post something online and someone gives you hate, it's the perfect opportunity to turn that around to your advantage.
Oh, I love it.
Hate online is usually quite personal. It's usually quite unfounded. It's usually a reflection of how that person is feeling at that point in time. So I don't think I've ever had a hater or something online where I haven't been able to say, oh, thank you for that. Can I just ask a couple of questions based on what you've just said? What in your experience led you to believe X? And why do you think that's seen as X? And actually, when you become at it from a logical and theoretical standpoint rather than an emotional and reactive standpoint, the chances are you will come out on top with that hater's comment, because they will be coming at it from a reactionary, emotional angle, and you won't. You'll stand back, you'll take a breath, and you'll go, right, I'm going to respond to this comment. I'm going to kind of almost be professional. And trust me, you'll always come out on top.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a real knowledge bomb for anyone who struggles with the same, not struggles, but has the same challenge sometimes. I always find it entertaining when you go back with a response like that, and then you also end up with a wave of other people who then join in as well, who then concur with what you're saying. I think it's one of those things you just have to kill people with kindness when they try and be negative with you. Like for me, the one thing I can't stand in my life is any negativity. So anyone who is negative or has anything like that around them, I will just cut them off or just kill them with kindness, to be honest with you.
100%. And if anyone's listening to this and you're kind of sitting there thinking, oh, I think the same, like I hate negative people. Like, do you? And do you actually change that? There's probably negative people in your life now. You say you hate negative people, but you keep surrounding yourself with them. You keep spending time with them. And like you say, no one really likes negative people.
No.
So if you're quite negative, I'd probably look at the people around you and the relationships you have, because you probably attract a lot of negative people as a result, and you're just not seeing their negativity because you're being quite negative.
Yeah, all blends in. I don't know if this is something else that's probably was a massive life-changing thing that made a big difference to me, was no longer watching mainstream news, because you will never ever turn the news on and what's going to be positive. Like it's just going to be negativity. Someone if you're in the UK or in London, it's like someone's been stabbed or something bad's happened. Like you're never going to hear anything that's going to add any, or Brexit. You're never going to hear anything that's going to add any value to your day or any positivity. So for me, that as soon as I cut that out, that also almost cleared my mind of just having a positive aura around me more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't watched the news or read a paper I can't even remember. Now and again, I'll pick up a Sunday paper and have a bit of a flick through, having a look at the travel section. But otherwise, yeah, I'd never really genuinely get anything from it. I kind of feel like I should almost keep up and just know what's happening, but it never really changes anything. And I'm like, I could have spent that time reading a book that I'm actually going to get something from.
Yeah, and it's amazing. You suddenly realize how much more control you have of your own life when all this other stuff that's touted in the media as being important. If you don't know about it, if you have no idea about it, and it doesn't actually affect you, then why does it really matter anyway? Yeah.
And if it's really that important, it would probably end up coming up in some kind of conversation somewhere, and then you're like, oh, I'll go and check it out. It'll come up at a family dinner and you'll be like, oh, interesting, tell me about that. But otherwise, meh.
Do you notice a bit of talk about family dinners, a bit of a generational gap in terms of mindset and how people behave, maybe with obviously negativity and positivity? Because from a lot of what I see, I can see a lot of the older generation sometimes being slightly more negative than maybe some of the younger people nowadays who are more open-minded.
Yeah, definitely. I think we live in a different world now, and I don't think a lot of older people have quite caught up with it. There's a lot. The world just works so differently now. There's loads of people that have their own business now. There's loads of people that work from home. There's loads of people that are working for startups. The business culture has completely changed. A lot of older people are used to kind of that institutionalized kind of career pathway. Get a good job, get into management, get a house, get a car. Whereas today, a lot of young people are not owning a car, they're renting a car or they're leasing a car. A lot of people don't want to buy a house. They're happy, loaning it and paying rent and stuff, because actually it doesn't stack up as being more financially beneficial. The world has changed a lot, and I do think there's quite a disparity, yeah.
I think it's one of the best, I can't remember the exact bits of it on infographics, but it's the biggest hotel company in the world is basically Airbnb, and they talk about Uber and all these revolutionary companies that have now come about, which 10, 15 years ago didn't even exist. If you think even 10, 15 years ago, you didn't even have the iPhone and things like that, how the world has changed so quickly and human behavior has changed so quickly, I can sort of maybe understand why some of them maybe struggle a little bit, perhaps.
But, catch up, we'll get left behind.
Exactly. Adapt or die. It's the way of life, and
yeah,
animal kingdom, as it were. That's the animal kingdom. So have you got any other mindset tips you'd like to add in for anyone else in here, Ben? We've had quite a few awesome bits and pieces so far.
Yeah. The chances are, for people that have quite a big blocker on their mindset, maybe something that goes quite far back into, their childhood, their upbringing and stuff, it would be the best investment in the world to go get some counseling or coaching and get someone to help you really unwind all that information. You know, some people can read a load of self-help books and mindset books and kind of unravel it for themselves because the stuff isn't too deep. But as soon as it's a bit deep, I would go and get some coaching, because the reality is, without your mind being in a strong and healthy place, you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve. Your daily thoughts control your daily actions. And if you've got some unhealthy thoughts, you'll have some unhealthy actions. So I think it would be very important to go and spend 50, 100, 200, 300 pounds on a course of coaching, counseling, mindset work, because it will set you up for so much future success.
I couldn't agree with that more. And I think from my background from the fitness side of things, from some of the more so the elite level, fitness competitors, the higher up people tend to be, the more they tend to struggle mentally and probably need more of that counselling aspect. So I think that's some really phenomenal advice there for anyone who's struggling at the moment who needs any more advice. So thank you really so much for that, Ben. And we'll start to wrap it up there. So we're coming to just over 40 minutes. So how can anyone find out about you, Ben, to get in touch and anything more about your speaking and mindset, your podcasts, your coaching?
Yeah, for sure. I assume people listening to this are into podcasts. I have a podcast. It's called Ben Coomber Radio. It's been around for over 6 years now, so there's an awful lot of shows there. So if you do hop on over, don't feel overwhelmed. Have a little pick and see if there's anything that takes your fancy.
What's your favourite episode so far?
Oh, mate, you can't ask me my favourite episode.
Ask your favourite child.
150.
Jesus.
That is mental. Do you know what? There's been some really good recent ones. Ollie Ollerton, who people would have seen off the TV on SAS, Who Dares Wins. Mate, it's tough. One of my favourite ever episodes was, what's his name? He... Training for Warriors, Martin Rooney.
Okay.
He's been in the fitness industry a long time. He's one of my favourite ever episodes. And it's because I just interviewed and chatted to him and he just fired me up over Skype. And I'm like, if someone can do that over Skype, imagine what they're like in person. And I've never been able to see him in person because he never really rarely comes over to the UK. And when he did, he always used to go up to Scotland. Why? I don't know.
Likes the rain.
Yeah, who knows? Mate, it's tough. Yeah, I've done over 450 shows now. It's quite a few to isolate one or two awesome human beings. There's been plenty on.
That's awesome to hear. And also, I'll obviously see you in Barcelona at the seminar that's going to be over there at the conference.
Yeah, looking forward to that. What's not to love about some sun, bit of education and networking with people. It's going to be good, yeah.
It should be an exciting time. So absolute pleasure today, Ben, and hopefully we'll catch up with you next week in Barcelona.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone wants to reach out on social media, just put my name, Ben Coomber, into wherever you like to follow people on social media and slip into my DMs, as they say.
Slide in.
Yep.
All right, cheers. Pleasure. Thanks very much, mate, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, dude.